Well, hello, creatives, community, and yes, kind folks out there, as well as all of my co hosts, as you join me here on RPG with DBJ. Of course, I am your host, DBJ, on our show where we talk all things tabletop role playing games. And really, the special part of the show is that this is all world building. And I thought we would get a little bit meta today. So we diverge a little bit on this show by talking about monsters, and I just labeled it Monster Mayhem. And we've been using various things, including like vacationing, to frame our discussion when we talk about our monsters and our adversaries. Monsters can be humans and humanoids as well, and but I thought we would get a little bit meta, and I wasn't exactly sure how to frame it, except to talk about puzzles and problems. And we I believe there is something missing that we can really learn from mythology, to be honest with you, and strangely enough, learn from, well, Gary Gygax, when at the beginning of the inception of Dungeons and Dragons, and bring that concept into our modern context. And of course, this happens to bump up against something that I hold dear to my heart, and that is the third pillar of gaming. You'll see where we go with this. It's not necessarily about exploration, but you'll see the context in which monsters and monsters that have puzzles and problems and needing to find a solution to solve that problem, I feel like is something missing, especially with the lower levels of Dungeons and Dragons when it comes to monster creation. And I feel like it's the thing that's like it's the itch in our brain, but we haven't yet seen how we're going to be able to do it. Now, I want to tell you that I had I had a stream yesterday. Oh, thanks, thanks there. Yeah, I'm putting a link into the chat right now as well. Into the into the chat. Wayne was there last night, so I had an interview with Manufactured Myth and Legerdemain or Legerdemain. I don't know how to pronounce that word, but MML. You'll be able to find his channel. Just type in MML and or Manufactured Myth, and you'll be able to find the channel and the other people he's been able to interview. Kind of a little geeky fantasy of mine because this gentleman also interviewed Walter John Williams and Kevin Symbiota and Cody Podsmith and a ton of other content creators out there that are worlds ahead of me. So I kind of like feel myself inside of like inside of that little bit of that little tight knit group of brilliant individuals, and I'm kind of feel like I'm kind of one of them. My ear heard the same verbal intonations as those guys. So yeah. And thanks a lot there, Wayne. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for saying that. Now, let me get a little bit more detailed in terms of puzzles and problems when it comes to monster creation. And like I said, we're going to be a bit meta here. So it's not about a specific type of monster, but monsters that do a certain thing. So I made a general mental list of monsters, and when I start listing them, I think you guys are brilliant enough to understand where I'm going with this. So the giant spider, vampire, the Hydra, the cave fisher, the cloaker, um, the purple worm. I'll say the Sphinx. There's a number of these monsters, these creatures. There's more of them out there. Not as many as I feel like there should be. But what happens with each of these monsters is that I'll put the troll. The troll is in there. Let's go with mythology. What is the Colossus of Rhodes? I believe it. No, no, no. Or is it Talos? It's the one. Achilles has the exact same limitation with the impossible to stop, except with the little weak point on the heel. That kind of counts as well. Um, Hercules' trial, the Nemean lion, counts into that. Now, where I'm going with this is that a lot of these monsters, a lot of the monsters that I'm referring to have this thing where if the hero fights them one on one without using any, I mean, with just using brute force, nothing else, they're a problem. Okay, comparatively, vampires are. I want to say are probably the epitome of puzzle and problem monsters. But these other monsters also have something else that deals with them. And essentially, what happens is the monster has a thing or does a thing or is immune or whatever for the players, the encountering hero to have to figure its way around it. The Nemean lion, who has a skin that could not be pierced. And Hercules has to fight the Nemean lion. So what does Hercules do? He wrestles the lion and can only kill the lion by using the lion's own claws against it. Right. The the Colossus. For some reason, either Talos or the Colossus of Rhodes, both are in my mind. You guys correct me on that, on the mythological part of that. But it's a big bronze or brass statue or something, which can fight off our heroes' weapons and whatnot. I believe it actually was in movie form with Jason and the Argonauts. And the only way to defeat it was someone had to run around behind its ankle and take off the little plate that was on its ankle because it was filled with like hot steaming fluid or something like that, almost like boiling lava or ore or steam or whatever. And of course, it spills out of its ankle. It loses all of its so-called arcane blood. It turns solid and falls over and crumbles and whatnot. I think the person that even solved that issue died. But Achilles, who was known to be like this golden man killer or something like that, takes an arrow to the heel, boom, dies, right? Unkillable until that point is met. This giant spider. And uh, the giant spider, the cave fisher, kind of falls into this category of like a monster carries around its own trap with it. It shoots adhesiveness, against its enemies and strings them up into the ceiling, much like Luke Skywalker in the Wampa, right? Gets beamed in the back of the head, wakes up, ankles frozen up into the ceiling, and it could have very easily just been, here's a giant monster out in the cold, fight it. Zoom, 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 kills it, goes away. But not, first of all, it allowed us to see that Luke has progressed quite a bit in his ability to control the Force. But also, why would the Wampa stick his ankles up into the ceiling? Well, he's probably saving him for a meal on another time. What I mean to say in these descriptions is that I see an unfortunate trend for monsters to be nothing but hit point sponges and damage dealers. And I feel like there should be more problems for the monsters to create for the players to solve. Whether it is something that inhabits, like a ghost that inhabits someone's body, and we need to figure out how to get the ghost out, and you can't touch the ghost, but the ghost is causing problems. What do we do? Vampires are, like I said, are the epitome of it because darn near every great ability a vampire has, the vampire also has an accommodating weakness. Sunlight, garlic, must be invited inside, mirrors, a stake through the heart, religious iconography, all those things, maybe even bright lights or fire. All those things really make the vampire a dynamic enemy to fight. And I think that's why a lot of times, even to a modern day, a lot of writers like to use vampires because they're so, you can take and twist and modify a um, a vampire so much that it allows you to take your protagonists and put them in situations in which they have to be intelligent, they have to be fast and quick and tough and brilliant and charismatic to navigate their way out of a particular situation. And I think that's why vampires are in there. So What do I try not to preload our um, I try not to preload our conversations too much, but I will say that I think there's three categories of puzzle monsters. Gaster, listen, you don't have to apologize for having a sinus infection there, Gaster, but you're always welcome here, Mister or Mrs. or other Two Soul. Now, the no, I know you're Mister Two Soul. The I think there's three categories, and the three categories I think fall into the range of before, during, and after. So, a puzzle monster that has a problem that needs to be solved beforehand is an adversary that basically, if you face them head on, there's no way for you to win. It's the I don't know, it's the Colossus. Mimics are a bit of a puzzle monster in terms of monsters that are like doppelgangers fall into the same category, hags fall in the same category, shape changers, illusionists, things that you can't see, shadows, and shadow demons fall in the same category as well. In terms of where are they, what are they doing? Rakshasa maybe fall as well. The Oni, the ogre magi. Wayne mentions that humanoid NPC foes should to me have and use the same special abilities the PCs get for their class. Use NPCs as a player class; they'll be harder monsters. Yeah, I I, I kind of feel the same way. Like there aren't too many tools given to dungeon masters, especially in fifth edition, and I get why the design mechanism is that way because it's a lot to keep track of. I understand that I think on paper it sounds good to give the dungeon master all the to open up every capability that all the players have, but I think in terms of getting people to start running the game early, it kind of doesn't work. Um, um, Logistically it doesn't work, meaning that if I'm one player and I've got my seventh level wizard, it's easy for me to because I've got one character in front of me. It's pretty difficult for a dungeon master to control like six or seven other characters that all have capabilities that all interact with each other. And I think that's why they did it that way. I'm pretty sure that's why they did it that way. And I think one of the mechanisms we kind of need are, well, basically the layering of the puzzles in the first place. I brought up the purple worm as an example. The puzzle of the purple worm, the cloaker, and a number of these monsters is that they can swallow a PC whole. And you've got the added problem of how do you get your ally out without hurting them while they're trapped inside of the monster's gullet, right? It's a puzzle, it's a problem, a situation. And when I say puzzle, don't think Rubik's cube or classic puzzles or 1000 piece puzzles or something like that. It's the idea of hitting this thing about the head and shoulders while possible isn't going to be the best tactic. We need to do something else. And a lot of these monsters that create these problem situations do things like the giant spider, placing the characters in a situation where they can't navigate through the environment like they really want to. The vampire has all kinds of tricks up its sleeve, like maybe hypnotism or shape changing or calling in allies like bats and wolves and rats and things like that. Sometimes some of them can turn into mist and flow around, and of course they can drain your blood, so that makes them able to heal themselves and drain you. And there's all these other things. And how do our heroes deal with it? Well, they manipulate the weaknesses of the villain, and we really don't see too many monsters that can do that. So, um, Michaels is essentially a foe which requires thought to combat. Trying to take on an iron golem toe to toe usually ends in tears. Knowing its command words or activation keys can save a lot of healing. You know what? I also think puzzle monsters are great because you can throw them into a party where the players are well outclassed by this thing, yet the players can still navigate. What I use the Iron Golem concept, and what I think I threw like 6 or 7 of them at the player characters, and they were like second or third level or whatever. There was physically no way for them to battle them. But what I did is I made them clockwork. So every golem on their back had a keyhole, but around their neck was a key. And so they had to get the keys off the neck of the golems and figure out which key went into the back of the other golem to put it in their back and twist it to turn them off. And so that was just a way for me to. It was very early on, and I don't know, like 20s or something like that. And it was a way for me to navigate. Like, how do we throw in these? Okay, and instead of trying to balance encounters numerically, like a sphinx or a giant spider or something, essentially a lot of times it's just a matter of how do we interact with them. The sphinx is a perfect puzzle monster because, well, if you want to call riddles, the sphinx normally isn't like, hey, let's fight the sphinx. It's more like, hey, sphinx, how do we get into the room? And the sphinx is like, well, I got a couple of things for you. Maybe you might want to answer some of those questions, that kind of thing. um let's see. Gaster says, allow me to introduce the um elot elote the elot, parasitic creatures that infect animals within the feline, canine, and avian species. Being able to take control of the animal mutates it internally before when it reveals itself through opening the animal's face. Oof, ooh. I hope you mean like a body horror thing. Um and showing a second mouth with sharp, jagged teeth used to eat bigger animals, including animal. I guess you're probably referring to including other animals of its like. So perhaps you are in a forest with animals and you need to find which one is an elote or elote and which one is just a normal animal. Finding something hidden is a great tactic as well. Yep. Wayne brings up the boule, which I can't stand the name of it. The land shark. You like boules bite, engulf, vanish below ground. The cave fish, the boule, the cave fisher, the gelatinous cube, anything that like grabs, moves, engulfs, removes an ally from the fight. The cave fishers, I refer to the cave fisher, which kind of falls in the same category as a giant spider, where the cave fisher hangs above people's heads. PCs go through cave system or something. Cave fisher shoots down some sticky stuff, pulls the PC up into the air. Okay, so now you have an ally in the air. You want to attack the cave fisher, but you realize that if you free the PC, they're going to fall. So yeah. Yep. That's another one where Michael's like, so basically Hellboy to the Golden Army. He who has the crown controls the army. That's another one. That's a big one that we've seen in movies, right? Oh, there's a horde of fill in the blank, zombies, robots, spirits, or something. And if you control the MacGuffin, the orb, the crown, the thing, if you destroy it or take out the main big bad, all the rest of them go away. That was the main focus of Reign of Fire. Reign of Fire, where a dragon was a young boy accidentally releases a dragon, creates a post-apocalyptic world. Hey, if you take out the main mama dragon, all the other dragons go away. You know. Let's see. Michael says, a vampire's gaseous form turned to mist is a real problem for those who haven't faced it. Exactly. It goes on to Gaster Two Soul says, I know a player who defeated a vampire with just a blanket covered in crucifixes and a strong line of rope. Yep. And see, that's the thing, right? Oh, we can't fight the vampire. Well, let's hold him off till the sun rises, right? Then you break a window open. I'm not saying every monster needs to be created this way. What I'm saying is that the idea of figuring out how to defeat the thing has kind of faded into the background of what do I have that does more damage. Wayne says, dragons properly played would be nearly impossible to overcome without a lot of planning, considering all the attacks they can have, not including breath, that they can use aerial attacks, tail swipe, wings. I had um, I created a dragon's lair that my players couldn't get out of, and in the beginning they were pissed because they were like, "There's no way to fight this thing," and then they realized, "Wait a minute, this thing is ancient." So the dragon had a cave, and stashed around the cave, it had like magic items, potions. It used not mir- it used mirror image, and what's the other spell where you create an illusion of yourself? It makes a single illusion of yourself, and that illusion cast spells from the location of the illusion. Yeah. But anyway, the dragon would teleport and stuff. It was, and the dragon had set up boulders and things that could fall from the ceiling, and would fly around the ceiling and knock the boulders down to like try to trap the PCs and crush them and whatnot. And then after doing that, we used a breath weapon because they had very few places to run because there was a bunch of boulders around. It was a whole big thing, and they were just like, "What the hell?" Like I said, the dragon's smart. Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's like, yeah, Mike's like, dragons are a series of problems that are a series of problems at once. It's an organic bomber with spec ops training. Hell's yes, hell's yes. Pretty cool. Mike Gold says simply by changing a giant spider's venom to paralytic creates a massive issue. Spiders typically paralyze insects and feed off them while they're alive. Missing people suspended high above in webs creates creates a series of issues. And a lot of times it might just be it could just be a like a location, for example, whether that location is uh, on the side of a cliff or underwater, or which is why I'm a huge proponent of using the environment, because it's not. I always bring up the shark and alligator issue, right? It's not the stats of a shark or alligator; it's the fact that they're in their own element when they're using their capabilities. And I think that part of the gaming of gaming, I think we could turn that dial up quite a bit. So the three categories of puzzle monsters I'm thinking of are before, during, and after. So a monster that has problems and puzzles beforehand is one that's nearly undefeatable unless you're able to break apart those puzzle pieces. I think I think the vampire falls into that category a bit. That Colossus of Rhodes idea I was thinking of. Some monsters are just basically unbeatable unless you prepare ahead of time. Dragons fall into that category as well. I think uh, a, a a series of problems during are monsters that have a lot of techniques or tactics or movement, or create situations in which the players have a lot to deal with. Much like the beholder falls into that category quite a bit, where it floats around and it can also shoot a beam at you, and it can also do other things. Whether there's the ankhegs shoot acid, cave fishers use adhesive to shoot down on top of you, giant spiders. It's like it's not that you need to prepare beforehand, but when you fight them, they create other situations around them, whether it's because they're moving vertically up and down a vertical shaft, or the amphibious creature, attacks you above ground, on land, and then jumps into the deep swamp, and now you can't find it because it's moving around your legs or something. And then there's the puzzle monsters that I call afterwards. A lot of times these are monsters that basically you kill them and then they do something else, much like the Hydra, where, hey, it's got 7 heads. I cut off a head, 2 more grow back in its place. Ooh, damn. That's kind of like a problem after the fact, meaning like we talked about the other day of having alchemical jars inside of the chests of skeletons, and then you go to hit the skeleton, and then the potion or whatever liquid opens up and it catches on fire, or ooze spills out of it, or adhesive spills out of it, or noxious fumes or something. So to me, I feel like those are problems that are created after the fact, meaning like the players do a thing and they go, oh no, maybe we shouldn't have. Um, anyway, that's where I'm coming from. That's where I think. Um, Let's see. Going back to co-hosts here, Wayne says magic using dragon surrounds itself with prismatic sphere. Exactly. Went against that once. Ended up on the elemental plane of Earth. Yeah, yeah. Taking down. Well, here's a good example. The prismatic wall, prismatic sphere spell is a puzzle, right? There's a way to take down all the colors. It's like when it goes through, starts going through all the Roy G. Biv colors, and it's like, oh, you have to use cold and heat and wind and a bunch of other things. I don't remember all the ways to take it down, and honestly, I don't think a lot of players remember in order how to take down each layer of a prismatic sphere. But again, it's a puzzle. Like, how do you get around it? And mind you, puzzles don't need to have one answer at all. Period. What I'm saying is, I know you guys have heard me say this before, but very early on in Dungeons and Dragons gaming, that made me really embrace the third pillar. I wanted to have my players. I overpowered my players with a flock of harpies, and they were at this abandoned castle, and they decided to use two portcullises by going. They go into the entrance of the castle. The harpies are flying around. They go into a tight area so the harpies aren't flying above them over the courtyard. They have to fly under into the between the two portcullises. The PCs drop one behind them, then they back out. They drop the other one down, trap them inside, pour hot fluid over them and oil and burn them to death. Right now, I planned on getting the PCs to run down into the castle because the whole point was I made an adventure and I wanted to railroad them into the castle. They had other ideas, and my point being is that they solved the issue by overcoming something they could not overcome. I mean, you had flying creatures. Harpies are pretty nasty. They were very low level. We were playing something like Keeper of the Borderlands or something, and I wanted to start out the adventure. And maneuvering around that is is a thing. Yeah, like Michael brings up the troll. Trolls fit into that category as well. Michael says trolls are the classic problem monster too. Regeneration or limbs that attack independently when severed are problems dating back to the beginning of D&D. It's so common now that I cannot remember a non-fire troll. Yeah, and now mind you, there people have tried to do like instead of fire using coal and electricity. They've never really hit. But the troll is a classic. Is a classic problem monster, right? It's sure we can fight it head on, and given enough damage, you can take out a troll. You actually can. But everybody knows fire and acid, right? Hit the troll with fire and acid. It can't recover from it. Just like the Hydra. And I think there we have a gaping hole for us to create monsters that do these kind of things, whether it is an after effect monster of any monster that you kill that explodes, engulfs itself. The Sphinx is kind of one of those. Anything that transforms itself after you kill it or you slice it open, and I don't know, smaller versions of itself spill out, or you pierce the monster and a poisonous gas comes out of it, or acid spews into your face, or something like that. I mean, those we don't really even see many of those kind of creatures as well. Like I've always thought that using zombies and skeletons and like having something infested into their body, or circling ravens or vultures or carrion birds or something overhead when you're attacked by the undead. It complicates things. Or zombies where you can start to check mark off what you want. Oh, let's see. Disease, parasites, poisons, acids, snakes and bugs inside of them. All that kind of. I'm like, why wouldn't you have that? And so I feel like there's a great gaping hole for us to create problems and puzzles to solve, not like a Rubik's Cube where there's only one manner in which to solve the situation, but to have the players rethink what it is that they're doing, you know, which is something I just really appreciate. Mike says, I've never used harpies on a low level party. Longbows plus flight plus charm means that I can selectively, as a DM, pick apart a group. That's it. That was my point. I was going to pick them apart, and they got together and they were like, and I'm the DM. I'm like, what are you doing? And they're like, okay, we got this idea. Let's run it past you. We want to time it so that the harpies follow us under into the entrance to the castle, right? There's like a portcullis there, right? And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, there's one. It's like, well, is there another one like where they close off two of them? And I went, sure. Still, I'm not really sure what they're getting at. And they're like, well, when they come after us, we're going to drop the portcullis on one end. And I went, oh, okay. And I forget how we use die rolls or something to figure it out. Although the harpies weren't very smart, but I was like, yeah, okay, why the hell not? Why the hell not? Mike goes on to say, water travel is a classic issue as well. You got that right. When a party member is picked off a boat and taken under the surface, like by Sahogian, etc., it becomes an issue of do we stay aboard ship and try to and try to see or dive in? See, you know what? That's I'm gonna leave this comment up. That's why I'm a proponent of using the environment, the exploration part of the pillar, because when someone gets grabbed by a shark, a tentacle in the water, the Sahogian that like, you know, grabs a PC by the ankle on the docks and pulls them down when there's like white capped waves spilling over the docks or something, when an alligator grabs somebody by the torso and pulls them down underwater, when fl- a giant flying creature, rocks or griffins or something, grabs a PC by the shoulders, grapples them, and flies away and flies into the air. What are some other environments? We've got water, we've got air. Winter wolves chase the PCs across a frozen lake or whatnot. In a desert, there's giant scorpion riders or something, or there's you have your own desert version of purple worms that are snaking, boulets, again, land sharks snaking through the sand, coming after the PCs, jumping out of the sand, pulling somebody back down into the sand maybe, or using the sand as a defense. Anything that burrows is technically, when it's not visible, is behind its own defense. And like, okay, so you get attacked by a purple worm, are you going to, well, purple worms are pretty huge. You could probably stand up in a tunnel for a purple worm. I don't think too many PCs would follow a boulet as it burrows through the ground. Like getting on your hands and knees or having to get down on your chest and slither through a tunnel to go after something. It's like, what? So to me, it's not even just monsters using tactics, but just using their own environment, because that's just normally what they do. I don't know if you've ever seen like the animal channels, but have you seen hyena attacks? It's pretty brutal, man, and they're brilliant when it comes to, hey, chase after the antelope, and other hyenas are like, yep, or jackals or whatever. They're like, I'm going to go around the corner and we're going to chase them and pin them down into this valley. Wayne says, a lesson from today's episode: when playing with DBJ, bring a couple of backup PCs and hope that at the end of the night, one of them is still alive. We used to listen. Let let me counter my killer DM rant here by saying that this also requires, if you're going to put a puzzle or a problem or some kind of condition in front of the player characters, it behooves us to allow the players to creatively navigate their way out of it. So if the players are going to be attacked by the giant spider and someone's like, hey, I'm going to light the web on fire, and there's no particular rule for it, but I allow it anyway, then yeah, let that happen. If a player character is attacked by the Sahogian and they're like jumping out of the ocean onto land on the docks or something, and a player character is like, I don't know, they finagle some kind of way to lure the aquatic creature, which is less, maneuverable, up on land and prevent them from diving back down in the water. fine, okay, but it, if you're going to set up the problem, you're going to need to be creative enough to allow the players to have a solution. And I'm all about the solutions. Hey, Caius. Thanks very much for being here. Mike Gould says shifting desert sands with things under the sand is even worse. I've used desert lizard folk that burrow instead of swim. It's a hell of a shock when they see scaled arms pull an ally below the sand. Oh yeah, anything that can swim through the sand. And there's a ton of stuff out there, right? Sidewinder, snakes, trapdoor spiders, scorpions, and then of course we have ourselves our bigger monsters, right? Just changing the movement value processes of a monster is a big thing. You know, lizard folk that can swim through sand. Hell's yes, hell's yes. I love it. Heck, just even have a fight near a raging river. PC falls into the river, it gets carried downstream. What do you do? Do you help your allies so they don't go getting pulled downstream, or do you keep fighting the bad guy in waist deep water, knowing that a tentacled creature will grab your ankle and throw you back down into the water, or what the big cinematic thing that happens with tentacled creatures: the grapple, the yank underwater, the dangle in the air, right? the big three, Star Wars. Hey, let's go into the trash chute. Damn it, we can't get out. Oh, there's something floating around here. Something rubbed against my leg. What is that? All of a sudden, one of our heroes gets pulled underwater. What do? Can't find him. I can't see him. Right? Kaiser Galantry says classic fantasy environment is the ethereal plane, creatures that can track foes from another plane and then plane shift and attack while they are safe inside a tiny hut. Um, I don't know if that's classic, but I absolutely embrace it though. What is it? The phase spider. There's a bunch of ethereal creatures. Ghosts used to be in that category until the game system was like, well, we're going to have to let the PCs swing at these things that they can't touch. So, okay, now we're just going to give them resistance, right? And I don't know. Oh, you guys, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, yep. You guys hawking each other like, you're devious. Michael brings up the want to terrify a party in freshwater? The froghemoth. Yep. Well, what is it? I think isn't there a giant frog that can swallow a PC as well? Um, Blink dogs are still around. Blink dogs are a big one. The whole the I love someone years ago said, what if there was only one blink dog and one displacer beast, but they just exist in so many different parallel timelines that we think there's multiples of them. I think it's a giant toad. Yep. Toad, frog. I know there's a way to tell the difference, and I don't know which one it is. Yeah, the giant toad swallows PCs. It's little things like that I feel like are missing. Where now, mind you, oozes, plants, um, and constructs, I think, fall very easily into these categories. Plants, anything like assassin vines, plants that spew pollen, anything that a plant, a man-eating plant that grabs a PC and engulfs them or something. That's pretty. I think those are real easy in the beginning to really incorporate these kind of things. Constructs really help as well, whether they're made out of stone or metals or things like that, where they're difficult to fight. But if you, I don't know, get them to walk off a cliff, or they have some kind of on-off button, or there's a gemstone that if you hold it, they stop, or there's a command word to get them to stop. Though I think those really count as well. I think hordes of undead work, especially if they're very mindless, where again you can get them to walk into a pit or off a cliff or into a wall of fire or something like that, instead of just standing there trying to hit them about the head and shoulders. Caius of Glantry says a roper in a crevice that moves 5 feet out, launches his tendrils, and then retreats 5 feet behind full cover of a rock wall. PCs have to time their attacks or get into a specific location. Caius, I'm gonna ask you a mechanical question, because the game hints at this but doesn't actually go into detail. monsters that burrow, because we talked about desert monsters and swimming through sand, and burrowing monsters like the boule, the land shark, the purple worm are the two examples I want to bring up. How would you adjudicate half cover, three quarters cover, full cover? You mentioned the roper, the piercer as well. How would you adjudicate cover when it comes to them moving in and out of the ground? Like, would you offer half cover if one of these monsters only half comes out of the ground, but only has half of its attacks? What about grappling, like being grabbed by a burrowing monster that then grabs and then pulls that individual like underwater or down in the sand, or quicksand or something? Like, how would you do that? I'll give you a chance to do that. I know it's you only have so many characters you can type in, but I want you to think about that mechanically because I know you do have that kind of mindset. So anyway, um, Michael says I have an encounter with bullywogs riding giant toads. Oh heck yeah! As cavalry with a bullywog barbarian who's a half black dragon. Ribbit, ribbit, whoosh. But you know what? That's the thing, right? Like, and mind you, they're of course they're in a swamp. They got to be in a swamp, right? So there's a bunch of bullywogs. Okay, there's a couple of giant toads they're riding on the back of. Ooh, that's dangerous. And then, like you said, a bullywog barbarian. It's a half black dragon. They're breathing out acid. Maybe the bullywogs are like throwing nets over the PCs and pulling them down underwater. And we really don't have too many rules that fall into those categories, right? Like, what's the drowning rule? Now, the suffocation drowning rule to me doesn't represent the panic of being like tentacled around the throat and being pulled underwater. But what a great what a great tension tactic, because a player character is like, ooh, they just grabbed the wizard and the wizard just got pulled underwater or swallowed by the giant toad who decides to leap into the distance or something. Like, do I stop and cast the spell I intended, or do I go after them? Right? Yeah, I'm with you there. There's no pressure. There's no panic with the current drowning rules. It's basic. The rules as written are as if DBJ, went swimming in the ocean during vacation. Right? That's not. There's no way I can hold my breath for 2 minutes while also being stabbed with spears or grappled with a net or being attacked by a crocodile or something like that. Michael says there's another one I've used that has a circular cave that has a roper in the middle with piercers all around the outside edge of the cave. Piercers are baby ropers after all. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do I get close to the roper or do I get far away? Hey, that's the same. It's the exact same philosophy I had. Like, oh, PCs go down into an actual dungeon with undead arms reaching out of locked bars, like prisoners or something. You got to stay down the middle of the aisle, because if you get too close to one side or the other, undead arms will reach out and grab you. It's a problem. It's a puzzle. It's an obstacle to overcome. And I feel like there's a huge gap that we're missing. And I think a number of monsters could be manipulated very simply, either by putting them in a particular location or giving them a trait that allows them to do the thing. Um, Here's going back with my co-hosts. Um, here we Mike says, to be honest, if a PC is drowning, any damage they take should subtract from the time. Uh, I actually made rules for that. Yeah, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I think it isn't too much to say, even instead of measuring time by minutes for drowning, I think you can measure time by rounds. I know that's a huge deduction in time from like 60 seconds or 120 seconds down to like 6 seconds times three, four, five, based on your con bonus. But I think that would, hey, listen, you're being grappled around the throat by a tentacle. You got a con bonus of +3. That's 3 rounds. After that, you drop to zero, right? Which puts the pressure on. So that's just me. That's just me. Dante says, I had a sci-fi game where where the monster on an abandoned station had a small psychic presence. It was so that as it went through the station walls and attacked from vents, the side player could track it. It goes on to say, made for good action strategy for that game. Oh yeah, anything that passes through walls, pass through a wall, attack the PCs, jump through the wall again. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I love it a lot. I mean, it's just there's something about that, you know. Um, mm, mm, mm. Mimic impersonating floor. There, what's the thing that impersonates the floor? I can't remember. Anyway, Kaya says, I once had the PCs defending a fey tree, burrowing carrion crawlers were attacking its roots. I had it that the party had to move earth to get to them, attack through the soil with reach piercing arms. You know what? Even something as simple as a dense forest that prevents you from using like reach weapons, or maybe the PCs are like standing on a metal grate and the only way to kill the creature with tentacles below is to use like ranged attacks or like piercing weapons to get through the grate. Maybe that's below their feet or above their heads or something. You know, like just different things to change the dynamic. Tight spaces where the PCs have to crawl or fit vertically through a tight alleyway or a gap or something. Maybe the PCs have to stand on a narrow beam or a tight ledge. Just using spatial awareness is just a simple way of creating a problem. Wayne says the mimic impersonating the floor. There's a monster that does that, and I can't remember what it is. The trapper. Thank you. Thank you. It's the trapper that mimics the floor. The cloaker mimics a cloak. There's another one that mimics the ceiling. Not the piercer. There's another one that mimics the ceiling. Yeah. Michael says puzzle problem encounters create thinking players, which is why a lot of people love OSR, because you couldn't look at your character sheet and find the easy button to get out of the situation. You really had to think about how to get out of it, because the game didn't have rules or even give you capabilities to get out of it. The lurker, that's it. Yep, the lurker above. Michael says, I have another one with with ruins hiding bugbears behind illusory walls. They grab and pull you through. The walls have arms? Yep. You know what? Here's okay. I'll 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 continue with you co-host first before I go into a little pet peeve I have. Mike Gould says, I'm writing one now that's a mimic reef. It's an entire structure made from living and dead mimics, trappers, lurkers above, with items being animated objects. Inside is a great treasure. Ooh, yeah, yeah. Yeah. Mike's like, oh yeah, I forgot about the lurker above. Ooh. But I love the idea of like mimic, living and dead mimics and trappers and lurkers, ropers, piercers. They're fun. They're fun. Kaya says my monsters use full cover as much as possible. They attack, grapple, retreat underground, and have full cover. They take opportunity attacks as they go. Yeah, why don't they do that? Or why don't we have them do that? Right? Okay, so this is I guess I call it a pet peeve, but yeah, and I'm putting this comment out here as well. You know, it's not even just their tactics. It is they should be monsters and so-called animal intelligence, mindless monsters should be doing the thing that they normally do to the best of their ability. Jackals and hyenas doing pack tactics, splitting the party. Right, most predatory monsters or animals attack the slowest, weakest member. You know, they're the an aquatic creature is going to use the water. That's just a given. Sahogan PCs get off a sailing ship. White-capped waves sweep over the docks. Sahogan leap up onto the docks with their tridents and attack the PCs. Of course, they're going to push the PCs off. Use that useless shove maneuver, right? Push and shove maneuver that everyone's like, I don't know why it's in the game. It's useless. Well, depends on what you're pushing or shoving them into. And if they push a PC off the docks into the water, and then them what is it? Underwater PCs have disadvantage on all attacks unless they're using specific. I believe it's like piercing. There's a list of weapons that they can use. But anyway, drowning, disadvantage on attacks. Hopefully they are encumbered, sinking to the bottom. Maybe if then you're going to have to figure out like when it comes. We can talk about this aquatic thing later, but can do PCs that are constructs, can they float or swim? Dwarves. Some people say dwarves can't swim in their world. You'd have to decide that up front as well. So yeah, that kind of thing. Michael brings up like fire giants know they're immune to fire. Green giants know their breath weapon will seep through cracks and through open windows and doors. Monsters need to act to their strengths. Oh, if they're smart, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. There's no way. And the the point of using the environment and a point of creating these problems, it's not really to kill your players. That's not my intention. My intention is that the way the current fifth edition rules are set up, it's extremely easy for the players to go Nova. They just, oh, we've got initiative, we've got 5 players. That's at a minimum of 10 actions they're going to take against your bad guys. What I'm trying to contend is that there should be other things the players are worried about, and creating so many other problems and puzzles for them to figure out that they don't have enough actions, or they have to sacrifice or think hard about what actions they're going to perform before they do the next thing. So an example would be, let's I'm trying to think of another um uh okay. The player characters are in a jungle, and they're on a, or maybe they're on a wooded hill. Let's do that. Let's go with a classic farce, and there is a hill, stony roots of trees, and they're on a steep hill. Maybe, just maybe, they have to, in order to not fall down this hill, they have to do a 3-point hold, right? Two limbs, two, 2 feet, and basically 3 limbs, right? 2 feet in the arm, 2 arms, and 1 leg. Okay. Well, if that means that one of their hands is occupied holding on, or maybe they're climbing up a cliff, or they're trying to scale this hill, well, does that mean that they can, when the player's like, I'm going to 2 weapon fight, plus I'm going to cast a spell, plus I have material components, plus I have my religious symbol or my arcane focus, and you're like, well, how many arms do you have? It's those simple things. If they're in a dense jungle, and the dense jungle reduces line of sight, okay, and the player's like, I'm going to heal the party, and they're like, heal the party with what? Well, I'm going to use healing word. Well, can you see your ally? I know you can hear them, but can you see them? Going back to a comment before with the illusionary wall and the bugbears behind the illusionary wall, they grab the halfling, they grab the pocket halfling, pull them through the wall. You don't see where they're at. You know they got pulled through, but you don't know what's going on. So those are the kind of things I'm thinking of, like um, when it comes to space and cover, that kind of thing. Mike Gould says, I once had an argument with someone over why castles cannot stand up to older dragons, all because the creature knows what it can and cannot do, and what the actual limits on construction are, especially if they're brilliant. Um, Heck, George R. R. Martin even brought that up about dragons. People are like, I'm in a castle. You can't fight with the dragon. And the dragon's like, yeah, I can. Flies up to the sun, and it dive bombs down straight on top of the castle. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, Wayne, I agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with the both of you. Creating tension in a movie creates fantastic gaming. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Dante says using illusion magic to hide the damage type of another spell would be a fun trick against a monster. Ooh, trick the fire giant into seeing fire, and instead it's ice bolts. Ooh, that's a cool trick. You'd have to time it correctly, but I like that. I like that a lot. That's actually kind of cool. And now, mind you, it depends on the fidelity of the illusion. If it's visual, then they might be able to. They'll probably easily tell the temperature difference. So it depends on the fidelity of the illusion, but I think you could get that pass them by once or twice before they realize it. Yeah, I'd let that happen. Hell yeah. Mike Gould says stone may not burn, but roofs are generally made of wood, unless it's buttresses, tapestries, rugs, doors, furniture. People burn. Oh yeah, we live in a world of flammable objects, right? From the beginning of time till now. So yeah, well, assuming it's a fire breathing dragon, but that's a very classic thing. So absolutely. The one I will say that coming up with these puzzles and problems, though, I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole of tit for tat. Where let's go back to the vampire example. Okay, um, a vampire lord most likely will have all of its capabilities available to it at any given moment. But there's a reason why introducing vampires, you have like the little lieutenants and the little vampire spawn. The vampires, it's only strong and tough, but they really don't have any of the other capabilities. Whereas like the higher level vampires can just freely fly through the air, or they can spider climb, or they have illusions, or they have more psychic abilities than just hypnotizing someone. Maybe they can read minds, or implant suggestions, or psychically wipe someone's brain out, or whatever the case might be. Turn invisible or something. And the reason for modulating the power of that is because we could get into an arms race where the players are trying to be so creative they start trying to break the game. It's the dumb thing of what was it? Someone wanted to create an insta kill combo by using a friend spell. Use a friend spell, convince the creature, now that they're friends, to use feign death on them, and then slit their throats to do it, right? And it's like, well, it you I see where you're going, but that can't be an insta kill thing, because there's no way you're going to convince someone to go like, oh, I'm just going to sit here and feign death, let you cast feign death on me so you could kill me, because they're going to know what's up, despite the fact that you used a friend spell, right? It's just a weird thing. Michael says an illusion that the party is dying in a fire might trick a fire giant to move forward onto grease spells or the like. Yep, absolutely. I absolutely agree. As a matter of fact, villains can do the same thing. Illusions, or maybe not even illusions. How about simple camouflage? I'm going to bring up something that is a bit controversial about how dark vision isn't as good as people think it is. Um, there's a blurb in dark vision that states that you only see in black and white. So when the player characters and the bad guys down in the underdark, because that's usually where down in the underdark, and you see a pool of fluid in front of you, what is that pool? There's Unless you investigate, you will not know what that pool of fluid is. An example would be, maybe that pool of fluid is water. Maybe it's blood. Is it acid? Maybe it's boiling water. Maybe it's freezing water. Maybe it is tar, or some kind of adhesive, or what's something else fluidic? I mean, it could be some kind of flammable oil. The PCs don't know. It could be poison, right? So even dark vision, which everyone's like, well, 90% of the character options you get dark vision, so dark vision lets you see in the dark, blah blah blah. Let's throw our hands up and go, oh, it's kind of stupid. Dark vision isn't as good as you think it is, because if an enemy attacks, let's say your distance is 60 feet. If an attack comes out of the distance beyond 60 feet, you don't see where it comes from. You don't know. You might hear voices. You don't know how many orc raiders there are. Maybe 3 orc raiders run out of the darkness at you. You hear there are many more after them. PCs are like, well, I got dark vision. How many are there? You can't see them. Yeah, Kylie. Yeah. Kylie's like a black pudding looks like a safe puddle when still. Black puddings, gray oozes, ochre jellies. Yeah, yeah. The surface, the top surface level of that gelatinous cube. Yep. Although I take in my game, I take away the cube and just make it a gelatinous form. But yes, exactly. Dark vision doesn't let you see what that is. Not at all. Mike's like Hags trick my players over and over again. Dark vision is also not radar. Dim light imposes disadvantage on perception checks, even with dark vision. You need devil's sight for proper sight. Yep, you sure do. It creates disadvantage. Does ultravision still exist in D&D versus dark vision? It was better. Ultravision does not exist in 5th edition. Neither does infravision. Um, one one being like night vision goggles, the other one being more like heat signatures, and they've been combined into what we call dark vision in 5th edition. And there isn't any other vision that operates the same way except dark vision. Now, yes, I know there's true sight and other things, but as far as that goes, no, it's just dark vision. Now, what is it? Is it isn't that the warlock capability? Devil's vision, devil's sight. I apologize. Yeah, devil's sight for proper sight. Although there's a loophole in the wording of devil's sight that it's own it's something like they still get disadvantage in dim light, but they don't get disadvantage in darkness. It's weird. If you read it, it's weird. Here's a quickie. Have a low bridge over what looks like water. The water is fake. It's an ooze in suspended animation triggered by crossing the bridge. The bridge is fake. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And like I said, remember that push and shove maneuver that everyone says is useless? And when the enemy's in the Underdark, it's like, oh, it's a pool of water. And like, sure it is. And then, I don't know, the cave fisher grabs the PC, dangles them up above the pool of water, drops them in, and like, that's not a pool of water. Yeah. Yep. Infravision, low light, and ultravision no longer exist. Yeah. We should walk around with like signs and protest signs like bring back ultravision. Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. A little bit of a meta conversation. I bet we could have stretched this out all week if we wanted to. We go back to the traditional format, by coming up with categories like, oh, here's an environmental problem. What capabilities can we give a monster with this other thing? Like, remember troglodytes that smell bad, and there was another. Are they mephits that when you kill them they explode? Yeah, molds and fungi. Yep, thank you, Wayne. Yep, molds and fungi. Yeah, you if you disturb them, walk through them, make noise, they spew pollen out and spores, or they what was it, the shrieker? The shrieker used to yell so it could summon wandering monsters. Stuff like that. I mean, heck, just fighting in a cave with like mushrooms growing above your head. Yep, is it mephits? Yep, mephits explode. So I while I feel like they like us mentioning these monsters, there's a number of monsters out there that create these problems and situations. I feel like they should be more embraced as a situation unto itself. Like, being attacked by a swarm of rats is one thing. I think knowing that the rats carry a disease adds the problem on top of the attack, right? Like, I feel like the rats should have a disease built into the stat block to make the players hesitate to go, well, we're third level now. Who cares about swarm of rats? And it's like, well, maybe you should, right? It, it's to me, I just feel like it's just something that's underserved. That's my thing. I'm ranting. Today was my little bit of a rant, so just bear with me, guys. Anyway, thank you very much. I was a little tired today because I did have that interview yesterday. If you let me, can I can't. Wow, that's right. I can't scroll. Mm. Oh wow, I can't scroll to the top Let's see if I can put this in again. Will it let me do it? Yay! It'll let me do it. I'm going to put in. I'm gonna put the link in again for the interview that I had. Yeah, Mike Michaels is poison. What is it? Poison, disease, and curses are underutilized tools for story progression, especially when they extend far past the next round's saving throw. If it's like we attacked the rats, great. And then you go an hour later, as the PCs have completely left that situation. Could you guys make a saving throw? What's your constitution? They're like, why? Well, you healed the hit points, but you didn't heal the disease. Oh no! Oh, what? We might be infected. Well, it's too late now. You healed over the wound, so yeah. Wayne's like, once again, fantastic fun and ideas from everyone. You guys are great to chat with. Do check out that interview. Thanks, dude. Thank you so much. Yeah, check out the interview. I don't know if it's going to give you much insight about gaming, but it'll probably give you a little bit more insight about me. I like the gentleman I spoke with. He's a English teacher in Boston and a cool dude. Reached out to me and stuff, so I got to geek out a little bit. But oh, thanks, Mike. But anyway, guys, it's a long interview, so you're gonna have to take it in chunks. But anyway, thank you very much, guys. I got to get out of here. Not really sure what tomorrow's theme is going to be, but we'll come up with something. Uh, Whatever. You guys be here. Thank you very much. Like, share, subscribe, do all that, do all the good stuff. Please do, guys. Have a great one. I will see thee later. Have a great one.